Welcome to Your Thoughts, Your Reality Radio with your host, K. William Spencer. This program is geared to help you see what thoughts and or beliefs are holding you back from being your best for yourself and those around you. Your life is only as good as your thoughts. For more information, visit our website at www.ytyrradio.tk. That's www.ytyrradio.tk. Now, here's your host. Hi, and welcome to the show. This is K. William Spencer, as usual, your host for Your Thoughts, Your Reality Radio. Today I have a very special guest who is in Canada, who has a very, very special story to tell you. I think you're going to really love listening to Lillian Brummet of Brummet Media Group in Canada. She's going to tell us a little bit more about herself, and as always, we're going to do the slingshot effect. But she's going to start first about telling us what Brummet Media Group is. She does manuscript development, she does radio shows, she has a show on Blogspot. She'll tell us about that. She has 4 books, and one is in a series. The books are Towards Understanding, Trash Talk is a series of 2 books, and Purple Snowflake, Marketing Plan, and a Jump Start for Writers. So, hello, Lillian, and welcome to the program.
Hi there, Kirk. Thanks for inviting me to be on your show today.
Oh, it is my pleasure. I have to say this before we get started. For those of you who don't know, I do pre-interviews with people just to find out if we're going to click. And if they're just real down-to-earth people. Lillian is so real, so down-to-earth. It is definitely a pleasure to know her, and if you're an aspiring writer or whatnot, I would definitely suggest that you talk with her and her husband, David. Or is it Dave?
Dave.
Dave, okay. I haven't spoken with Dave, but if you can judge a man by the personality of his wife, he's got to be one heck of a nice guy. So I'm going to let Lillian tell us about what she's doing now. Then we'll tell you, or she'll tell you later, how she got there and all the trials and, if you will, tribulations she had in that growth. So go for it, Lillian. Tell us, start wherever you want.
Okay, great. Well, I thought about myself as a person just to get as to, who I am. I love gardening. I love playing in the dirt is what I call it. I'm out there every chance I get. I'm really passionate about creating biodiversity and organic gardens and landscaping and container gardens. It's just a real passion for me. I love shopping at the local farmers market and the local fruit stands and vegetable stands and places like that. I like getting to know the farmers in our area and conversing with them about, what they're doing and getting into that. It's just a real passion for me. I absolutely love animals, especially dogs and cats, mainly dogs. I have 3 rescued animals with me in our home today. All of them came from rescue shelters, and the cat was actually off the street. She sort of found us. She was a stray and came into our home. So I love that. I love the idea of being able to make a difference by simply going down to the local animal shelter and giving some of my extra space to some of those other living creatures, giving my extra love. And I have a lot of love for those animals, bringing them into my home and cuddling and play with them and training them. I really enjoy that. I've been helping some of my neighbors train their dogs because they've seen, how ours have grown after being adopted. So it's really cool. That's something I really enjoy doing. I have a huge passion for writing. If I could, I would write 24/7. I absolutely love writing. I love delving into my passions and sharing my passions and exploring my curiosities and interviewing other people and getting their stories out there. That's a way for me to leave a legacy, which is what I'm all about in everything that I do. My hobbies, my days off, and my career. It's about leaving a positive legacy, and that is just absolutely vital for me. It's very important for me in my life. When it comes to my career, I work with my husband. We run a business called Brummet Media Group. And this offers, as you said, Kirk, many different services. My husband is a drum teacher. He also does drum repairs and servicings and tunings and things like that. So he'll work with schools and music stores and individuals and getting their instruments to sound perfect and making sure that he extends the life of drums that maybe have a cracked shell or are broken or something like that. He's able to fix those and reskin them and tune them and get them back into the cycle of life again as opposed to sending them to the landfill. So
Yeah.
that's really important for him. He's also very talented at proofreading and editing and formatting and graphics and things like that. He's the guy who does our website and our all our images and audio from my radio show and all kinds of stuff like that. So that's his expertise in the business. And for myself, I tend to focus on not just the office work, but also a lot of the writing, most of the marketing. I do the manuscript development stage, so I'm doing the research and the writing and the interviews and things like that and putting it together. I'm also the person who runs the radio show, so I host a radio show that airs 3 times a week, Tuesdays, Thursdays, and Sundays. It's called Conscious Discussions, and that's literally what it's all about. I have people from all over the planet come onto my show and inspire me and inspire my listeners to live a more proactive, positive lifestyle. So that's a really exciting part of my life. I really enjoy that. And I have a daily blog that I manage as well, meaning I have fresh content going up on the blog every single day. And it's called the Brummet's Conscious Blog. So the radio show itself can be found at blogtalkradio.com/conscious discussions. And the blog can be found at consciousdiscussions.blogspot.com.
You are one busy woman.
Yes, very busy. Yes, and between that, you got to run the home and the yard and the gardens and everything. So it can get busy, but time management is key.
Oh, definitely, definitely. It was kind of, I found it kind of amazing. Lillian, I ran an ad. I shouldn't even bother to say this, and who knows. But at any rate, and Lillian was one of those, if you can feel a person through what they write, is one of those who just kind of reached out and just went, "Hi, I'm a nice person," and she is a very nice person. She was a bit persistent. It's not a negative way of saying that. I don't mean that she was aggravating or anything. I want to be on your show. No, she wasn't doing that. It's just like, "Hi, I'm here. Can I talk? Can we talk?" And very quickly we became friends, and everything else she does, on occasion she'll send me a little message during the day, and it just brings a smile to my face, and I answer back. Lillian is one wonderful person. With everything else that she's done, tell us a little bit about the books now. You gave me, as I would call it, 4 books. I know one is a series, but it's just part 1 and part 2 is what I'm gathering. So tell us about it, starting with Towards Understanding.
Okay, well, Towards Understanding is a collection of 125 nonfiction poems, and they're written in they're released in chronological order, and so that is a way for me to show the healing journey that a victim of violence and abuse goes through, showing other individuals that there's hope, and hopefully putting words to their own journey, helping them express and feel the emotions like music does for us. When we don't have the words ourselves, we aren't able to express what we're going through, and then they see it in the poetry and they're able to say, aha, that's how I'm feeling and that's what I'm going through. So my hope was to encourage people who had gone through difficulty in their childhood and in their teenage years, and to provide a roadmap to sort of show what the healing process is for people who are working with those individuals, like social workers and teachers and parents and what have you, so they would be able to have a little bit of insight as to the emotional journey that one goes through during the growing stage of beyond surviving and into understanding oneself.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, I think we're going to end up getting into that in the second half of the show, where Lillian actually tells us about her life growing up and the transition into what you're hearing is a beautiful life. So tell us a little bit more about the trash talk. Now, you're into, if I remember from what we were speaking off the air, you're into the recycling thing, or is that is nothing to do with that at all?
Absolutely. Yeah. The Trash Talk book started out originally after I'd taken a writing course, and I had decided that this is what I wanted to do for a living for sure. So I took a writing course that explained the process of being a writer, such as managing your office, figuring out your zoning laws, dealing with taxes, all those kinds of business aspects of being a writer. And so part of that course had an assignment of coming up with a marketable idea that could be a series of articles for different magazines or newspapers and stuff like that. It was just a challenge that they put out to their students. And so I came up with an article called Trash Talk about reducing one's waste. And this was just before the Zero Waste Initiative really started picking up. And what happened right away, that article got picked up and it became published internationally. It depended on the publication, sometimes every 2 weeks, sometimes every month, sometimes every 3 months. So it was a variety of different publications that published these articles. And that ran for about 5 years or so prior to writing the first Trash Talk book. It's now released, the Trash Talk book is now released in a new edition that has two books in that series, Trash Talk Book 1 and Trash Talk Book 2, both of them with the title, subtitle of It's Easy to Be Green. Now, the Book 1 talks about, well, basically educates people about the R's of zero waste. So that would be rethinking, refusing, reducing, reusing, recycling, and rot, which is, of course, composting. Mm-hmm. And then it empowers people to do the right thing because it shows them the measurable impact of each of the different points that are raised in the book. And it lists in alphabetical order the common things that are found in your litter box, in your garbage and your trash box, your trash bin, or your recycling bin. And it talks about each one of those, both the manufacturing and also the waste management aspect of it. So what happens when it goes to the recycling center? What happens when it goes to the landfill? So it talks about those kinds of things, and then it offers many different repurpose, reuse, aspects of that, and encourages recycling. So it shows people how much money they're saving, how much carbon footprint they're having by changing these types of activities around their home and office, and many other aspects of that. So that's just sort of an overview, but it's a very easy book to understand, and you can go chapter by chapter, work your way through it, or if you just have one item that you want to look up, you can do that as well. The Trash Talk Book 2 is kind of like a sequel to Book 1. It's like the next step beyond those R's. So it goes further into conserving resources, energy, water, that kind of thing. It also talks about more reusing aspects. It talks about things like how we can create jobs from these types of activities. It talks about alternative energy, gardening, composting. So it goes sort of a step beyond the easier steps in the zero waste movement. So that's what those two books are about.
All right, let me ask you this before we move on to the last two books, because this one is, well, I have an interest in all of them, but this one is a little bit separate or different than the last two that we're going to talk about, or you're going to talk about, we'll discuss, I guess, is that this is an ecological book. So do we find this on Amazon.com, or do we find this through your website, or how does a person find this book, or any of your books?
Oh, well, That's a really good question, and they're very, very easy to find. You can go to Amazon or Barnes and Nobles. They're all available there. They're also on Kobo and Sony and Diesel and many other places. The publishers that we're using for our books are Smashwords.com and CreateSpace.com, so you can purchase directly from the publisher as well. All you need to do is go into your favorite bookstore and then type in our name, Lillian and Dave Brummet, or just Lillian Brummet, and you should be able to see a list of our books there.
Ah, cool. That really works. So now we got that because I wanted people to be able to find these books. We're talking about them, but how do I find them? Where do I go get one? Okay, cool. Okay. So the next one is Purple Snowflake Marketing Plan. Tell us about that book.
Mm-hmm. Okay, well, Purple Snowflake Marketing is basically a guide, a step-by-step guide to help authors learn what to expect in the world of writing, how to employ research and preparation skills, how to make a memorable first impression, how to most effectively use your budget, including special cost-saving advertising advice and all kinds of things like that, how to run the office, how to organize your office, how to organize your taxes. But it also helps you put together a marketing plan so that you'll be able to have more confidence as a writer, whether you're a seasoned writer or a new writer. It helps you have more confidence for each book that you release because you now have a plan in place, a long-term plan that's going to last for the life of that book. And we teach you how to go about time management, how to break your plan down into, what you're going to get done this month, what you're going to get done this week, and then what you're going to get done today, those kinds of things. So it helps you break it down into a more user-friendly plan. And it also provides over 1,000 resources at the end of the book, and offers stats and all kinds of inspiring quotes from people in the industry, including reviewers and publicity agents and writer coaches and publishers and lots of individuals in the industry who work in the industry every single day. So there's lots of advice from them in there as well, and it's just packed with information. There's I think it's something like 480 pages or more of really packed full of information. You'll notice with any, I pay special attention to having much white space in the books. It means you're not going to see empty pages between each chapter. You're not going to see a chapter starting halfway down the page. There's not a lot of wasted space. So when I say 480 pages that are packed full, I mean packed full of content.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that sounds good because you find a lot of these books, they're starting halfway down. They've got a lot of pictures in it. You've got graphs and all this kind of stuff. So it's like, nice pictures, but I want the information. Okay, fine. Sometimes visual aids work fine. Let's go to the next book, and then I do have a question for you, or maybe more than one. Jumpstart for Writers.
Okay, Jumpstart for Writers is basically a mini book. It's about 40 pages in length, so it's a small book, but it offers encouraging tips and inspiring quotes and links to incredibly helpful interviews for people to follow up on. So there are lots of resources in that regard. But basically, it encourages people who would like to write a book but don't know much about the world of writing. So it offers some very inspiring information about what it takes to be a working author, some basic information about networking, some basic information about time management tips, and answers to very common new writer questions. So basically what happened with this book is I was, I'm constantly networking and connecting with other people. And so they're emailing me or instant messaging me or contacting me in some way or dropping into the radio show. And so there's a lot of common questions that come up from people who haven't been exposed to the industry. And I put all those together, and those are also available in this book. So a lot of information in those 40 pages in this book, that's for sure.
40 pages?
It's an ebook, by the way.
Hey.
Yeah.
For
So it's an ebook. There's no pictures or anything. There's no white space in this book, and it's an ebook, so it's downloadable as an ebook. All of our books, other than this one, are also available in print and a variety of different ebook formats. But Jumpstart is just an ebook.
okay, cool. Now, let me ask you a question. This is where we're going to get a little bit more formal. I told you I didn't do too many formal questions, but I want to ask this question.
Okay.
Um, you've got these last two books, and your business is built on helping writers and helping writers get started, so on and so forth. I think this is very wonderful, but I want to ask a question that maybe others may be thinking, and sometimes even I think about it, because when I was a kid, and even when my parents were kids, there weren't that many writers out there, and writers were definitely the popular people, just kind of like in the early days of movies. You think about Clark Gable, you think about Marilyn Monroe, you think about the Marx Brothers, and all these people that were basically forerunners to the movie industry that we know, or the guy that used to live in Cuba, I can't think of his name, Hemingway. Hemingway and Voltaire and all these other people that were very popular writers. And nowadays, very few people can ever just come up, who's a popular writer these days? And it's a market that's been kind of flooded. Just like movie stars, there's an industry. Movies are flooded with new actors and actresses on a daily basis, and they're making B movies like crazy. You can find them. Hey, just go to YouTube and look up movies. But for someone who's an aspiring writer these days, is that still a dream that can be accomplished? To become, well, maybe not the great American novelist, but can a person actually become, or can they actually make a living from doing this? Because there's so many people that are trying to write. And I know I made the kind of a remark earlier. It seems like everybody's got a book out these days. But in your experience, is this something that people can actually earn a living doing?
I think yes, you can definitely earn a living by doing this. There's a variety of ways of going about doing this. We could probably do several hours on this topic alone, but basically you need to understand, first of all, who your audience is and how you're going to be reaching out to them. You have to be very proactive as a writer. You can't just sit back and say, okay, I've written this book. You guys, you publishers, you people over there, you have to take care of it and make me rich. It doesn't work that way. It may take several years before your first book actually becomes very successful. So you got to put a lot of work into developing name recognition, in appearing as an expert in your field, in being very, very present online and offline. You have to be going to events. I mean, you really need to get out there and market. You can't just sit back. So it's a very active career. Funnily enough, just the other day I was having an interview on another pre-recorded radio show. It's not gone live yet, but anyway, she was asking me about this this topic, and we were saying, how much work actually goes in the scene of writing, and her and I were joking about how on a good day you actually get to write, because most of your other time as a writer is marketing and networking and organizing and querying, and it's a lot of work to be a writer. So, yes, you can do it, but you have to have the initiative, you have to have the self-discipline, you have to be committed, you have to be tenacious, you have to be energetic, and you have to be personable. As much as writing is an introverted career or craft, you also have to get out there and you got to get known. So there are concerns with people who live in smaller towns like myself, or people who live in rural settings that are going, what, how in the world am I going to get out there and connect? Well, there's lots of ways that you can connect via interviews like what we're doing today, online, blogging, promotional articles. I mean, the list is endless as to the different ways that you can get out there and be known and get exposure. So it doesn't matter really where you're located. It just changes the tools and the activities that you're going to be doing. So if you live in a large metropolitan area, there's going to be an awful lot more author presentations that are going to be available to you. You can go to writers groups, you can go to the, different conferences, you can different events for writers. There might be a book fair, those kinds of things. So it really is also on your personality. So whether that's something that you want to do, maybe you want to start speaking, and so you'll have back-end sales instead. That means that you're going to be doing a speaking event, which you get paid for. You're going to go around and do these lectures and these speaking events, and then you have your product, your book, for sale for the people who attend those events. So that's a closed niche market, a very effective way of selling your book, because those people are interested in that topic. They've heard you speak about it, and now you have that product for sale. So that is a really effective way of going about it. But there's many different ways about going in this career. You might become a writer's coach. You might give classes in the local college, etc., in order to make your budget work for you. So the one thing that we have to be aware of, though, is that book sales will vary. So you might be doing an advertising campaign right now, and maybe it doesn't have immediate results. What it might do is it might give you name recognition. It might drive traffic to your website. It might do other things for you, but it may not end up being immediate sales. So you have to look at each endeavor that you're going into. What is the result that you're aiming for? Design your activity around that aim, whatever your call to action is going to be, and realize that it's going to take more than one interaction with that potential customer. They used to say it was 7 times. You had to be in that person's face, basically 7 times. They have to see your name in print. They have to hear about you on a radio show, etc., and so forth, in a variety of different ways. Now it's more like 15 or 50, because there's so much out there. There's so many demands on that person's budget. There's so many things that they're going to be interested in. So you have to keep on being out there, and you got to keep busy at it. So it's you have to be tenacious. You got to be persistent, and yes, you can make a career out of it. There are people out there that have written, and I admire this, that have written one small ebook and have been able to make a living off of that one book. There are other people like myself who've had to diversify a little bit more in order to make my career pay for itself. So, it's an individual thing. It really is.
Yeah, but what seems like the underlying thing you're saying here is that, actually not underlying. You just came out and said it directly. You just can't write a book and just go, okay, I'm going to be popular here, give it to a publisher, and they'll do everything else for me, and I'll just sit back and just reap the benefits. I think what you're answering also for me is that it is a competitive field because there are so many people writing out there, so you do have to be very active in getting your name and your material actually promoted, if you'll say, to the public.
Absolutely. And that's why you need to stand out like a purple snowflake in a snowstorm, because the snowstorm is hundreds of thousands of new books being released every single year in English around the planet. Hundreds of thousands of them every single year. How is your book going to stand out among those? So we have to think about our customers' budget as well. They have a limited budget, and they're very interested in reading, and they want to buy books, but they're inundated with all of these wonderful books that they'd love to buy. I have a wish list, a mile long. I mean, I would love to get at some of these books, but my budget is also limited. So you have to really focus on attracting those customers and helping them understand why you're different, what's so special about you, what you offer them, how important this is. You also want to look at things like that would attract them in other ways, like you're a very green author, meaning you choose to work with green publishers. You choose to, release your products in acid-free, bleach-free, recycled content. Maybe you're raising funds for different charities, things like that. These things really draw people in as well because they want to support people who are out there making a difference. So those are some things you might want to keep in mind as well.
Wonderful. We're going to take a little commercial break, and when we come back, Lillian is going to tell us about since she's already told us about what she's doing and how she can help you. Oh, by the way, Lillian, you do help people with these marketing aspects of their books, correct?
Well, we have the book available. I used to just offer advice to people, but I found I was just inundated and I don't really have the time to do that. It has been suggested to me to be a marketing coach, but I'm not going in that direction just yet. But I do have this book available and it has all the information that I've learned in this career and in running businesses in the past and so on. That's all in there for them. So if they buy the Purple Snowflake marketing book, they're good to go. Just follow the information in there.
Sounds wonderful. All right, when we come back from break, Lillian's going to tell us about her life before all these wonderful things and all this knowledge that she's gained and sharing with us, and how, if you have been suffering through some things in life, that maybe you can relate to with her, and how she overcame these things. Wonderful story coming ahead. Please stay tuned.
Are you ready to put an end to thinking about how you wish it were and take action? Take this step to find out more by going to coachingbyria.com, and you can receive your free consultation session with Coach Ria.
Hi, this is Kate Williams Spencer of Your Thoughts, Your Reality Radio. Come and join us every Tuesday and Thursday for enlightening, humorous, and intriguing conversations with my guest, or just a monologue of thoughts that I share, all to help you look at life and your choices differently. For more information, go to YTYRradio.tk. That's YTYRradio.tk. And welcome back. We're here with Lillian Brummet of Brummet Media Group. And as we said before break, Lillian's going to share with us her life before the transition into this life of beauty and wonder, and before she found the man of her dreams, etc., etc. And actually, this is a lead into where we were talking about at the top of the show. Her first book, or at least the book that we mentioned first, is Towards Understanding. She's going to tell us about her life, well, as a child, and how she grew through that. So, Lillian, please share with us.
Okay, all right. Well, Kirk, I grew up in a abusive, unstable home life environment. My mom was actually married 4 times and boyfriends in between, and unfortunately 2 of those 3 stepdads in our life were abusive. They were sexually abusing me, and they were abusive to my brothers physically. Both my brothers were on their own when they were 16, one of which stayed in the U.S. when my mom took me and my other brother up to Canada to marry her 3rd husband. He was an alcoholic and extremely violent and abusive, and I was sent away for a short time, a couple of years, and when my mom finally decided to leave that individual, I was brought back to live with her, and of course we didn't really have a connection. And us kids, we were sent away a lot. In between my mom's running from one husband or breaking it up with another boyfriend or something like that, we were often sent away. And so there was this distance in our relationship to begin with. And having gone through what I went through, and in the preteen age, I was just full of rage and anger and confusion and fear, and she didn't have the skills to deal with it. I didn't have the communication skills, and so we really didn't get along. My mom wasn't wealthy. She was a single mom, working very, very hard and to put food on the table, to be self-sufficient. She was always very proud in that regard. She didn't want to take handouts. She didn't want to, live on welfare, things like that. So she worked really hard in life to make things work. And so she was gone a lot. And if I was to have any spending money, such as buying clothes or school supplies or anything that I wanted beyond food on the table and a roof over my head, I was going to have to pay for. So I worked. I did a lot of babysitting. I worked in nurseries. I did yard work. I did farm work. And so I had some money coming in, and I went to a babysitting gig one evening after school, and my girlfriend told me, "Hey, there's a party going on. Let's go see what this party is about when you're done your babysitting gig." So I went with her, and I came home, and my bags were on the step. Basically, I had a garbage bag and a half of my belongings, and I was kicked out of the house, and I was 13 and a half years old. So that was my introduction to being on my own. I survived originally by just sleeping on the park benches and leaving my stuff with friends or staying in friends' places until the parents started asking questions, of course. So I didn't stay there very long, and survive that way. The summertime was really easy to survive because park benches and what have you was nice and warm out there, and there's always parties and people throwing parties and stuff, so you could crash at their place or something like that. But then when it came close to wintertime, I ended up getting my first apartment illegally. You're not allowed to be on your own at that age. And the owner of the building was renting he was not the owner, he was the manager. He was sort of like an unscrupulous manager. Obviously, he rented to me and wasn't telling the owners that he had certain apartments filled. And so he was pocketing some of the cash, and that was okay for me because I got in, I had my apartment, I had some runaways living with me, and people, they would get a fight with their parents and they'd come and stay at my place or something like that. Mm-hmm. So I was kind of like a haven for them, and I was trying to go to school at the same time, staying in high school, but I found that my peers in high school were in a different world, of course. They're still playing with their dolls and having sleepovers and, worried about clothing and makeup and boys. And the last thing I was interested in at this time was boys, of course. I mean, I had been exposed to men, and that was not something I was interested in. I couldn't see their fascination with it. I was working all the time, so I had like calloused hands and things like that. So I was not fitting in anymore with them. I couldn't relate to them, these giggly girls and things like that. When I'm busy trying to pay bills, it just didn't work. And so I ended up leaving school and working full time at a variety of different jobs and being able to pay my own way and survive until I was about 16 years old. And I was caught living on my own. I had basically broken up with a boyfriend, and the apartment building that we were in at the time, I was living with him. The apartment building that we were living in at the time had this huge block party happening, and it got way out of hand. I mean, these people were tearing the place apart. So I took off. It scared me like you would not believe, Kirk. I mean, it was scary. These people were pretty violent and having fights and stuff. So, where did I go? I went to the women's shelter. I was very familiar with the women's shelter because of my mom's activities throughout my childhood. So I found the local women's shelter and I went there. They realized how young I was. They called family services, and I was put in a foster home. So I was really scared when I went into the foster home because I hadn't had to deal with rules. I hadn't had to live according to someone else's white picket fence scenario. It was really foreign to me, everybody having dinner together and talking and all that kind of stuff. That was not my home life at all. That was really strange. There was another young boy there as well of their own. And so that was really weird, this whole family scenario. So basically we made a pact between us. I said, I agree to go to school part-time. They had special programs for youth like to catch up with their schooling. And so I was going to go to that, and I was also going to have my part-time job. Instead of working full-time, I was going to have my part-time job, and so I could still have some form of independence. And that worked for quite a while, but as soon as the stint with them was over, I was out of there. I just felt it really uncomfortable to be in a family environment. I was not in that frame of mind. So as soon as I was able to, I was on my own again, and back with the same boyfriend for a couple more years before I was able to move on my own. But the one good thing about going to that foster home was she was a social worker, and she was able to help me work through the reasons why I had insomnia, why I had nightmares, and why I was afraid to go to sleep, and why I was afraid of men, and all of this. So she was there to help me through that. She helped me put words on paper. Originally, I was burning them, just to sort of get rid of them, vent them, put them on paper, burn them so no one could see them. Later on, I started keeping them, and that evolved into my poetry writing. So she was the key for that to happen. She was also the key for me to take one of my stepdads to court, which was a really scary process, and dealing with all the formal and the judges and the lawyers and all of that wonderful stuff. So, I went through that. So it was quite a lot to go through at that age. My foster mother tried to get me to meet up with my mom and start a relationship with her, but neither of us were quite ready for that. It took a little while beyond that, but it did open the door because she got us together to have coffee a couple times, so half an hour here and what have you, and with that, it sort of opened the door of the communications, and my mom and I started building the relationship very tentatively, very carefully over the next 20 years or so. So we were able to eventually become friends and forgive each other for most of our activities. Some things, I just never could talk with her about. I just had to let it go because it was too much emotion, and I never could get a straight story out of her. Her answers would change, and she would tell lies to protect herself and things like that. So I never really understood everything, and I was never able to heal everything. But we got to a point where we could be friends, and my mom inspired me about gardening and nature and in the environment. She inspired that in me, and so there's a lot of good things that came out of meeting up with her again. But it was a very painful time for sure. It was when I was about 19, I ended up going to the Arctic Circle here in northern Canada, really northern, where people leave their vehicles plugged in 24/7 because it's so cold. Seriously, you're driving on ice roads and all of that. I was up there for about 7 months or so, and I ended up leaving there very, very quickly. It was too much of a harsh environment for me, and started taking courses after that to run businesses and get involved in marketing and management and stuff like that.
Let me ask you.
That was my journey.
Let me ask you a quick question. Why did you run up to the Arctic Circle? Now, before you even answer that, for those who don't understand what she's talking about, leaving your vehicles plugged in, I've had other friends that lived up in that area. You have to leave your vehicle plugged into an outlet just to keep the oil warm, because the oil becomes so thick it won't turn over. Your engine won't turn over when you try to start it whenever you get up to go and leave. So that's what she's talking about when he's talking about plugging in your car. So, yes, go ahead. Why did you run up there?
Well, actually, I got introduced to my mother's husband's friend who worked up there, and he had a drywall mudding company. So not putting up the drywall, but doing all the mudding and the taping and the, all of that. So he was going to take me under his wing and teach me the business as an apprentice. And I thought this was an opportunity to get into a trade that was going to give me a reliable income. But unfortunately, it was a lot harder work. It wasn't just the mudding. I mean, we're talking like climbing on scaffoldings and walking on stilts to get at these raised ceilings. And sometimes we were putting up drywall, so it was holding these, 3/4 inch thick drywalls above your head. And it was really heavy work. And I was, very physically fit at the time and, muscular and what have you. But it was still very difficult work, and the guy got a little bit amorous and I ended up leaving with my tail between the legs, running basically from him and from the environment up there too. It's a very violent environment up there. There's a lot of suicides, a lot of family abuse going on up there, much more prevalent than anywhere else I've ever seen. They have a lot of suicides up there, a lot of teen suicides. It can be pretty hard on a person to be up there, dealing with the elements, dealing with the changing light that happens up there. It can really work negatively in your emotions in your brain, and chemicals that are released by your brain and stuff like that. So it was a few different reasons why I left, but I left quickly.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I can understand that. There have been a few places I've lived in my lifetime. It's like, nope, gotta go. Bye.
Yeah.
So, yeah, we still have a few more minutes to go in here, and you seem to have kind of drawn it to a close too quickly. But after, let's see, you left there, you came back south, at least southern Canada, and you started taking business classes, and, well, start from there.
Well, I went to the college and I took some of those career assessment and personality assessments. I've been reading a lot of self-help books at this time, trying to understand myself and, get over the abuse and the fears. I had a lot of fears and anger issues and things like that. So I was dealing with that on my own through these self-help books. And I went to the college and took a couple personal courses in that regard. And several of those actually had to deal with assessing who you are and your likes and your dislikes, and also career assessments. And many things kept on popping up. There was working in the field of biology. That really appealed to me. I had also went back to school and was getting a university 12, meaning I was very interested in going into the realm of biology, and to do that I had to get like advanced classes in math and advanced classes in science and things like that. So I went and I got that happening, and then I met my husband. And at that time, in order to take the biology courses that I was looking at, I was going to have to leave and go to a larger city, to a university to have that happen. And I was afraid of the long-distance relationship, and I ended up choosing a different path. So I ended up taking courses for hospitality management, and I got involved with that for a few years. But then I got involved in a car accident. And that was my final wake-up call there, Kirk, before I moved into what I do now. That accident, I had been running a business at this point. After I took the management courses, I started my own business, and I ran it for about 5-6 years. But when the accident happened, I ended up losing that business, and I felt really defeated. I went through chronic depression. I felt like, all the stuff that I went through in my life, all the survival, all the work that I did to be quote unquote normal, to fit in, to grow as an individual, to be acceptable, I felt like it was all worth nothing. The accident had me in physiotherapy full time for a year and a half, and then I was in part time for about a half a year after that, and I never did bounce back 100%. So there was a lot of chronic pain that I was dealing with, a lot of appointments and all that kind of stuff. And it just put me in this total role of depression. And I honestly started having suicidal thoughts again. I just didn't want to go on. And I was able at that point to speak. I was able to learn communication, and I told my husband, I said, this is how I'm feeling. I can't take it anymore. And he said, well, what is it going to take to give you what you need? What do you need? We'll do it, And I wasn't sure, but I went back and I looked at all those courses that I had taken, those personality assessments, those career courses, and what kept on popping up in my mind was all of them kept on relating that I should be a writer. All of them. They kept on saying writing, writing, writing. And so I thought, well, you know what? Writing was always what I turned to get out all the stuff that I was dealing with onto paper and to be able to deal with it and understand it and process it. And so that's what really opened up the door. That and the idea that I needed to feel like my life had some meaning, some value. I needed to feel like I had been leaving a positive legacy. That was really important for me because of the accident. It made me feel like doing what was expected of me, what I thought society would want from me in order to be acceptable, to be clean, to be shame-free, that wasn't making me happy. And it didn't feel like it had any sort of fruition to it, any solidity to it. And so that's when I changed my whole world. And now I am where I am.
I'm hearing something here that hopefully you can expound on. You're talking about the life that you grew up in, and it sounded like your mother was one who was looking for love. It kind of reminds me of an old country song, looking for love in all the wrong places. But the thing that you learned to deal with, and you didn't accept the defeatist way of dealing with things, because you're talking about even living in the northern country or northern part of Canada, where people felt, I guess, a sense of hopelessness, and especially with kids, since we're kids at some point or another, kids look at life as being, I don't see a future for myself, and they go commit suicide. And they don't understand that life is something that you live now, but just like the weather, just like the raising and the setting of the sun, life changes. And you seem to have understood this at an early age, that life changes, and to make my life better, I need to do something to make it better. It's even like you're saying, even about writing books and whatnot. Yeah, just because I wrote the book, that doesn't mean that my involvement in that is over and done with. You have to continue doing it. You can get help, you can get a publisher. You're not going to create your own publishing company and buy your own printing presses and all that, but you still have to be out there to promote who you are, even in life. And this is what it sounds like you've learned at an early age, is just getting out there and learning what you have to do that. But you learned the life lesson of not conformity, but who is Lillian, and what does Lillian have to give to other people? What does Lillian have to share with other people? And that's the one thing the biggest thing that got you on the show is just, I have a big heart, and I do want to share with other people, and I do want to help other people. You do this with your animals, you do it with planting, and now you're doing it here, and even, I would assume, even on your own radio show. So can you expound on that?
Well, thank you for saying that, Kirk. That means a lot to me. Originally it was survival, just getting through the day, surviving, just breathing, just becoming as numb as possible, whatever it took to be numb, to get through the day and appear normal. That was how I got through the days when I was younger. Later on, it turned to anger, especially anger at my mom, anger at situations, anger at what should have, could have been, anger at my stepdads for doing what they did, for taking advantage of me, for the damage they inflicted. I had one of the stepdads that I took to court. He found me, actually. He wasn't supposed to because I had a restraining order, but he found me and he threatened me, and he said, no matter what, I was always going to see him. He was always going to be a part of my life. I was never going to be able to forget. And that made me so angry that I started the healing process. That is what got me going there. So I think in some ways, the anger was some of the most healing thing for me, because it kept me going. I was, there's no way you're going to be in my life forever. There's no way to affect me forever. Mm-hmm. And so it was really there. also, I'm going to show you I'm worthy of your love. I'm going to show you I'm better than that. And so some of that was happening for the early periods. There were times when I was younger, as a preteen, when I was quite suicidal, and there were times when I honestly tried to put myself in a position to commit suicide and couldn't do it, didn't do it, got caught or something. And that made me really angry at myself, because I thought, well, geez, I can't even do that, right? But later on in life, I think I had this, not just survival, but because I had to do so much on my own, even when I was with my mom, when she was working, or she was with a boyfriend or whatever, we were cooking our own meals. We had chores. We cleaned the house. We looked after things. And, so we were like little adults running the household. And so I think that individuality, that ability to pick up and do was really key to my deciding that I was going to better myself, that I was going to heal, that I was going to be able to be whole enough to love, and move forward in life. And Dave, he played a big role in getting me to where I am today. I got myself to a certain point that I was able to open up and be a whole person in regards to being in a relationship. And he helped me get the rest of the way. He was my support. He was my understander. He was my ear. He was my shoulder to lean on. He's always enabled me to follow the passions and the dreams that I've had. So having him around played a big role in it as well. So, there were lots of steps along the way.
Yeah. Well, we only have about maybe 2 minutes to wrap up the show. And Lillian, before we even go there, I do want to say I haven't heard the whole story, but as I said at the beginning, I don't want to hear the whole story, because I don't want you to think the mind will tell you, I've already told the story, I don't want to tell it again. So this is very heart-wrenching, very, very touching, very lovely story. And I do want to thank you for it. So before we close the show, do you have, in 2 minutes, roughly, anything that you would like to say in closing and to inspire listeners?
Don't wait for tomorrow. You don't know what tomorrow's going to bring. Follow your dreams and your passion now, today. Drop what you're doing and just pursue it. A lot of times we have too much fear, too many second voices in our minds telling us we can't, we shouldn't, how selfish we are. Never mind that. Just pursue it and do it now. Just a couple years ago, when my mom and her husband committed suicide, they really woke me up to that. I had been planning for tomorrow for a really long time with my husband. We're talking about, we're going to move to this dream location when we are retired, or when the situation is right. We're going to do this when the situation is right. And after that happened, I realized, you know what? You never know when you're going to be diagnosed with a chronic illness. You never know what's going to happen to you. We don't know that tomorrow is going to be there for us. So live for today, because today is your golden years, right now.
Yeah, today is all you have. Tomorrow's not a guarantee.
Yeah.
Yes, definitely. Well, Lillian, I definitely thank you for being here. If you ever want to come back to the show and share more with us, just let me know. You always have a welcome spot here on the show, and I'm quite sure others will be glad to listen to you. I know I will. So let me know, and thanks again for being here. If you want to catch up with Lillian and anything that she's done, what you've heard, let me just bring it up. I'll tell one. It is www.brummet, BRUMMET.ca. That's brummet.ca. And if you're looking for books on Amazon, this is where I'm going to let you tell it. Lillian, where can they find your books and whatnot?
Oh, they can go to virtually any online bookstore, or to their own local bookstore, and order it in. But if they go to createspace.com, they'll be able to find the print editions of our book. If they go to smashwords.com, they'll be able to find a wide array of ebook formats available for all of our books. So those are the two places that I'd recommend the most, because it lists the book suppliers, distributors, and the different stores. And of course, you can purchase through the publisher themselves as well.
Beautiful. Thank you, Lillian, and thank you everyone for attending our show today. Be a part of it, and we'll see you next time around. Bye for now. Thank you for joining us here on Your Thoughts, Your Reality Radio. Please make a note to join us again on our next broadcast. For more information, visit our website at www.ytyrradio.tk. That's www.ytyrradio.tk. Our theme music is Soul Controlled by B.O. Crew under a Creative Commons License 3.0. See our website for more information.